So thank you, Sharon, for volunteering to spend some time with me as we learn about you and your mother and Katie and all three of your experiences with KC. So tell me a little bit about you, how
Okay.
you came to KC. and-
Okay. Well, a lot of it was the situation. I was raised Southern Baptist in Maryland, and I was very spiritual as a young person. My baptism was very important to me, and I felt very touched by God at that time. And that's how it was through school. But then in college, there was quite a drought. I started teaching in Baltimore County, and then I got a job in Howard County. So the situation was that I had moved here, and I was in a drought place spiritually. And that was around 1972. And I came here sporadically because my mother was coming here.
Okay.
She was always praying for me to come here. And when I would come at those sporadic times, I was very touched emotionally by the minister, Jerry Goethe, at that time. I call it the healing church because at that time there was a great healing going on with all of us. I mean, many people cried during services. There was always a lot of laughter. But it was just a very different place. It was a place of deep commitment, tithing. Who'd ever talked about tithing? And there were people here at that time that tithed their money. So I saw a lot of deeply committed people, and I really valued that, and that really touched me. And it helped with my own growth.
So how many years have you been here? Been
Since
coming to KC?
1972.
Wow.
Sporadically at the beginning, but then, yeah.
Okay.
And I loved also the diversity here. I loved the non-denominational approach. Instead of trying to go down this, that, one denomination, Methodist or whatever is going on. I loved the service, giving back. There's a lot of service, helping with poor people and building homes with Christmas in April, and shoe boxes that we made for people in Africa. That was a big deal.
Okay.
Hugs, lots of hugs,
Not that loud.
lots of acceptance and love. So that was
So for you, how would you describe sort of your spiritual journey through KC?
it was a personal growth thing. In fact, I realized that when my mother and I were coming then, she and I, even though my father was not around anymore, he had been an alcoholic, and even though we'd gotten him out of our lives, we were both still in pain and needed a lot of personal growth and understanding ourselves. We didn't feel whole. So that also appealed to us because there were a lot of therapists at this church,
Okay.
psychologists, PhDs, doctors, and there was a lot of personal growth going on. So I think she and I did some therapy together around that time.
Oh, wow. Great.
And we both had a drought, or I had a drought going on spiritually, and this really filled that for me.
So Jerry was someone very special in your life.
Yes.
Okay.
He was what do they call him? An ENFP from the Myers-Briggs.
Okay.
Quite a feeler. And he would even get teary during sermons and share from deep within himself and his own pain. And that helped us get in touch with ours. I just remember so many tears back then. I don't see that as much now, but I still think the services touch us deeply. But then it was like I say, it was like the healing house. We were all healing then.
Yeah. So it was personal healing that was sort of opening up the spiritual connection.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And so the community, talk a little bit about the importance of the community for you.
Well, community became a family gradually, and I had different other communities, my school group and different communities in my life, but this community became family, and I can't imagine, they became more of a family than my family, and more accepting than my own family, more loving, more giving, more committed, and I can't imagine life without this church. I mean, it gets to that point. Sometimes I take it for granted that everybody's got this.
Yeah.
Everybody doesn't have this.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Well, I think it's a real testament for you, your commitment, because you live in Edgewater, which means you drive quite a distance to continue to come back.
That has been the last 13 years.
Yeah.
13 or 14 years. But all the other time I lived in King's Contrivance right here.
Okay.
I taught school here.
Yeah.
And I was here before Bob and Katie and all of that.
Yeah.
Because I lived here as a teacher.
Well, then let's talk about your mom.
Okay.
So tell us about your mom, and I know that this was one of the reasons why you wanted to have this interview, was to really share some stories about her.
Yes.
And about sort of her relationship to KC.
Yes. She was always my rock. And whatever I was going through, I could share with her. And as we came here, we became even closer. And both shared our pain and our struggles.
Her name was?
Jan Jones.
Jan.
She was raised Doris Ruth, but she never used Doris or Ruth growing up. Well, I think she used Ruthie, for a while. She would call Ruthie.
Huh.
But because there were so many Ruths in her class, they called her by her last name, which was Johnson. And Johnson became Johnsy, which became Jancy, which is my sister's name, which became Jan. Believe it, that's the...
Okay.
So it became Jan.
Wow.
She was Jan Setzer when she came here, and then she became Jan Jones when she married my stepfather.
All right.
So, and Judy actually brought her here, my sister. My sister was probably the most broken of all four of us in our family. Really went into a very deep depression, but she lived with my mother, and she was seeking too, and she would come here intermittently. But my mother was the most committed. My mother was the regular. She got us all here because of her strength and her determination, her commitment, her regularity of coming here. So she came here probably in 1968, 69, 70,
Wow, the
right?
very beginning.
Yes. So she was, I think, first at the King's Contrivance restaurant where they met upstairs. And then that got too large and they moved over here to the Manor House. And then when they were talking about buying this place, which was not a very, it was just a bunch of stones and horses and stuff, carriages had been here, and wanted to purchase it, my mother talked about mortgaging her house. And my mother did not grow up with a lot, and she raised us, the three of us, herself. My father really didn't help financially much. And I thought she was crazy. I'm like, Mom, what are you doing? You don't have this. And she said, my job is solid. I'm federal government. I'm moving up, and I want to do this. This is really important to me. So she mortgaged her house to do this, which spoke volumes.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I really want to get into this talk. And the other thing that she really gave here, which might not mean a lot, was called the Shepherding Committee. This was a coffee house church. Tables every single Sunday, not in circles like we do now a lot. And she saw the need for welcoming people into this very unusual place. And she started the greeting, which she called shepherding, bringing in sheep. And so that then became our greeters group. But that was real important to her. And even in the video that my husband made of her when she died, there's a picture, there's a movie clip of her with not Jan Radke, but a person coming in, and they videoed her as an example of what shepherding was about.
Now, was she at all connected to the Church of the Savior?
No.
No. Okay.
She might have gone there. I think I might have even gone there one time, but
Okay.
no, she wasn't connected.
Mm.
But my mother came alive here. You know, she blossomed here. Even though she was intimidated by the PhDs and the doctors and the psychologists and the therapists and all that, she found her place and was respected and really shared herself in a deep way.
Yeah.
And shared her money.
That's amazing, as many other people did, but
Yes.
yeah.
The other thing that really stands out to me is that when I was married and my mother was married, it was within 6 months of one another.
Oh.
And she and my sister and I had been a threesome for quite a while. So Judy had been depressed and ill for quite a while and was seeing therapy. But that said to my sister that she was being left behind, which is probably what initiated her suicidal tendency. So she did commit suicide. And we were all in great pain at that time. And my mother was in Ohio with Harry. I called her and I said, Judy is gone, and come home. And Jerry Goethe called me, he was with me during that day, and said, we will all be meeting at the church, and we will be there for her and your whole family. So my niece came up down from Cecil County, and my sister, and everybody gathered at the church, and that was the first time we gathered around the death
gathering
of someone. And everyone sat in a circle around the fire. It was dark, and we just held each other, and everybody was crying.
Wow.
Everybody knew my sister, and they probably we cried the most, but everyone was holding us and just letting us cry, and we all just talked, and it was so important to hold us up like that.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing that I missed the first time we did this interview.
Well, so tell me about the weddings, though. I didn't realize they were 6 months apart.
Oh yeah, well, so Bob and I were married June 30th, 1960. 1986. Four. Katie came in 86. We were married 1984, right? And we had clowns. Florence was a clown at our wedding.
Oh, fun.
Walked us down the aisle. And it was a great day. We had way too many people. It was probably over 200 people in this church.
Wow.
Because we just invited everybody. I kept saying to people in my school, oh, come. And Bob would say to people at his work, oh, come. Everybody just come. So it was a great day. Yes. It was a tradition then to have a potluck wedding. Carol and Jack, I think, might have started that.
Okay.
And normally organized it. And people called her, and they organized a number of people bringing turkeys and dishes.
Yeah.
We paid for all the wine and the bread and the turkeys. And the wedding was upstairs, and then you went downstairs through 2 lines, get your food, and back up. And by the time you came back upstairs, the chairs had all been turned into tables for people to sit at. And it really felt like a blessing to have this whole community care enough to do that.
Yeah.
That was done a number of times. I think Florence and Rick's might have been that way too.
Neat.
So,
Neat.
yeah.
And then
my
your
mother
mom got married.
but she didn't get married up here. Because
Okay.
Too many. Harry wanted it to be simple. I think he was a shyer person. So they got married in Florida and didn't want any family there. They didn't want a big hullabaloo thing.
Okay.
So she had her best friend, and he had his brother, and they just got married down in Florida, where they would go in the winter and stay down there.
So Harry had a reputation here too, right?
Yes, Harry. I knew Harry ever since I was 3 years old. They were our neighbors, and during the wartime. And he and his wife, who I adored, she would make pies for the children in the neighborhood and have us over when everybody else was working.
Uh-huh.
And who does
Aw,
that? But it was just a sweet thing. So when she died, we really were sad. Mom and I and my sisters wrote him a letter about how much we missed her and how much we loved her.
Oh.
And he called my mother and started talking to her about it because his family's in such pain around her death. My mother and he reignited quite a friendship. My mother had stayed in touch with them even though they had moved to Ohio. And so they got this friendship going. And when he came east to see her, he very suddenly said to me, away from her, I want you to know that I am here. I am an honorable person, and your mother is, and I am here for a reason. I want this to be a long-term thing. I am sincere, and I really care about your mother. So it was not long after that. Well, that might have been August, and they were married on Valentine's Day, February 14th.
How sweet. Yeah.
Which was like 6 or so months after us, whatever it was. And then it was a couple months after that that Judy committed suicide. So that was, it was really up, 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 and then boom, down.
Yeah.
And this community was here for all of it.
Yeah.
They had a party here when they came back up here to Maryland.
Okay. All right. So
They had to celebrate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
But they just didn't get married yet.
Good.
And he was very saddened by Judy's death. I mean, it was just, and he didn't understand a kind of community like this that would hold us while we cried. He kind of felt like they were taking his place. So he wasn't sure about this place. But as he became friends with Jerry, he became the go-to guy. He became Handy Harry.
Yeah.
This used to just be a lawn out here. And he would mow the lawn, he would shovel the snow, he would fix whatever needed fixing. And I became Mr. Fix-It for me, my sister, church, whoever. And he was called Handy Harry.
Well, there's a brick there that has that on there. That's why I wondered. Yeah. Good.
Yeah. He wasn't a member here, and he didn't come often to services. He did, of course, come to her funeral here, and Judy's funeral here.
Okay.
But memorial service.
Yeah.
But he didn't come to services much. He did all the outside stuff. But he was a faith-filled man.
Neat. And so your mom, how long did she live?
They were married for 25 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I know. I think
a long time, yeah.
She was 91 when she died. So back up 25 years from that is when they were married.
Okay. Yeah.
And when she was 85 and he was 85, they were pretty close in their age. They moved over here to Vantage House. At that time it was called Vantage House.
Okay.
And so they could just walk over here.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you were able to be with her up until the end, huh?
Yeah, which makes Vantage House a blessing and a painful place as well.
Yeah.
In fact, driving up this road, I will always remember going in there. Even when I come to church, there's a sadness and a joy at the same time.
Yeah. So along the way, you were married. You then had a daughter named Katie. Tell us about her.
Okay, there was another piece there before Katie that I wanted to share about.
Great.
And that was I decided to live communally because I had lived in a dysfunctional family for so long, and I had done therapy, and I lived over here in the same development where you are, and I wanted to live in a healthy family with a healthy family, and there were communes here, and of course people think that's way out kind of thing, but for me it meant possible healing around family. And so I moved into a commune with Florence and Rick and Diane at that time and a man named Hubert. And we lived there for only a year, but it seemed like a long time
Uh-huh.
And then we bought 2 houses right next door to each other, so that we continued that relationship. And I bring that up because it was when Florence's oldest daughter died, was killed. That was very, very painful for all of us. And it felt like for a long time, I would say a year, we lost our joy. And I just realized at some point I was just always, I didn't smile as much. It was, how can this happen? And she was actually murdered, and so how can this happen in a world like this? In Colombia, it was actually in Ellicott City. So at some point I wanted to get a handle on that, and the clowning classes here at church were having classes, and I decided to join that. I wasn't sure about it, but I wanted to see the light side of religion and church. And I learned the joy of God and the grace that comes with community around that. And I became a clown, and I
Did you have a
clowned in
name?
services. Silly Anna.
Okay.
I was a adolescent girl because that was my hurtful place during my adolescence. And I had a picture which I forgot to bring, but I found joy.
Neat.
And then Florence and Rick came, and he became a cowboy, and she became a Perot clown. She had little stars on her breasts and was all in white. And he became a cowboy, and it was fun. It was really, we did find our joy. Diane did too. I don't remember her clown, but I do remember that she did it as well. And the kids, some of the kids did it too. The kids that had lived at the farm,
Yeah.
because it was such, it was a birthing, a new birthing of a new part of us.
What a gift.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably
not
never had a clown service.
No,
they're
not a
very
normal
powerful.
way of sort of coming back to life.
Right.
But that's what one of the things Casey really offered was some very
Yeah.
different ways of experiencing community and God.
Yep.
Tell us about Katie, because there's quite a story there.
Okay, so Katie, I was 40 when I married Bob, and when I was pregnant I was 41, and Katie came when I turned 42, and I had to go to bed for 3 months. I was placenta previa. It was a very tenuous pregnancy, and I was very angry. I say I was very pissed off. I was really angry. I was angry with God. I let God know that I really wanted a child, but I didn't want a child this way. I was a phys ed teacher. I was an active person. I was to be outside of my life and move and go to bed. What was he thinking? Or she? So I'm smiling now, but it was a really scary time for me. And thank goodness for Carol O'Bell, who came over and spent hours with me, visualizing my anger and letting it be really gross and awful and scary, but venting it through visualizing. And told me about some of her work that she had done around that. And I'm like, Carol, you did that? And she said, yeah, I blew up buildings in my visualizations. Oh yeah, a lot of things like that. So she really helped me get rid of that anger. And thank goodness, because to have a child to be that angry is not healthy. And this church came and visited me. I mean, everybody at this church came to my bedroom.
Wow.
So when I go places and see other people, I'll say, oh, Jack Dunleavy, he was in my bedroom. So was Rick Miller. So was... So it was, it became fun to talk about, but it was still scary. And once Katie was born, it was a very scary night. I had a bleed, and Bob got me to the car because I kept saying, I can't go to the car, there's too much blood, blah, 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 blah. And we called the hospital. They were waiting for us, and the trip took forever to get there. And they examined me and said, she's coming now. it's 6 weeks early, but you're having her now. And Bob said he wanted to be there in the operating room, and they said, okay. Somehow the doctor trusted him, because that was a really scary situation for them to allow him to come in.
Yeah.
And so I was out. I don't remember a thing. Except going in, my arms were out. I was on a gurney and my arms were out, and I said, I feel like Jesus Christ going to the cross. I mean, what is this? And the doctors laughed. But she came out. She was mostly okay. Bob was there, saw her cry, stopped crying. She was ashen white. And they brought her to me to say hi, but they had to send her to another hospital.
How old now?
33.
Okay.
Got married 2 years ago.
And so that's 3 generations that have been here at KC, right? Is there a theme between the generations about sort of the connection to KC and the spiritual journey?
For me, the uniqueness of KC, well, the acceptance and the love here, but the service is also a big, big part of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that touched my mother, and definitely touched me. I felt like my whole teaching, 30 years of teaching, was part of my God's work.
Mm.
And Katie continues that with her work. She was like a social worker for a bit.
Uh-huh.
And the people said it was amazing how she connected with them. She was the overseer of maybe 30, 35 people in Anne Arundel County, seeing that they got all the services that they deserved and that they should be getting.
Uh-huh.
And she really liked doing that. She got a little tired of all the paperwork because it becomes too much paper and too little connection. But when she left, she had a number of people say how they would really miss her and how they had really helped their child. She had really helped their child. I mean, she went to IEPs at schools to speak for the kids. These were disabled kids. Did I say that?
No.
Okay, these are all disabled.
Okay.
And that's interesting how she's always been accepting of that in high school. Even when she was a student, the disabled kids would come running up to her and say, hey Katie, and she could be at the mall or wherever she was and just hug them and love them and not be embarrassed by them.
Good. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This was
Thank you
wonderful to have the time to chat with you. Thank you, Bob, for
You're very welcome.
recording us.